AM 560, The Answer, Chicago's Morning Answer. Chris Crock and for Dan Proft. He's back on Monday. 312-642-5600 is our number. 312-642-5600. Paul Vallas joining us this morning, CEO of the McKenzie Foundation, policy advisor at the Illinois Policy Institute, ran for mayor of Chicago in 2023, previously served as the CEO of Chicago Public Schools. Thank you, Paul, for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
I just read I read a lot of your stuff today or yesterday, and getting ready to talk to you today, which I always enjoy talking with you and hearing from you. Your column in the Chicago Contrarian the other day, Chicago's Killing Fields. Since the beginning of the year, you write that Chicago again leads the nation with 42 school-age youth, 17 and younger, murdered, 154 shot and wounded. There's no press conferences, no protest, no screaming headlines. Brandon is quiet. Johnson, of course, and as is Pritzker. Why?
Because it doesn't make for good politics. Look, since schools reopened after the COVID shutdown, there's been almost 1,500 students who have been shot, and 311 of them have died. So at the end of the day, they've just brushed it off. They're ignoring it. When I wrote that article, I provided a contrast. You know, they've had, countless press conferences about ICE and about the ICE crackdown. If you remember, they had a major press conference, and it was in the news for about 2 or 3 days when ICE made its one and only arrest of a school district employee. Mm-hmm. There are 626 schools, public schools in Chicago, and over 200 archdiocese schools in the Chicagoland area. And they had, and ICE arrested one person, and it warranted a major story. It warranted a press conference. It warranted about 2 or 3 days of talks about how schools are under siege. And then in contrast, 42 murdered children, 154 shot children, crickets, nothing. So it's just par for the course. They've literally accepted this as a way of life, and they're doing nothing about it.
So, Paul, does and right here, one of your things you tweeted out too, taking no action on the crisis of 2,000 school-age youth in Chicago who have been murdered or shot since 2019 when Pritzker took office. Does he really even care about these kids? And does Brandon Johnson even really care about these kids?
No, they don't. They don't. And look, if you remember, they shut down the schools during COVID. Pritzker issued something like 40 executive orders, emergency orders, and they effectively kept schools shut down in Chicago. The teachers union was a big party to this. The teachers union threatened to strike 3 times to force the schools to remain closed. Incidentally, at the time, those were illegal strikes, and of course, Lori Lightfoot caved into them. But they kept schools shut down for 78 consecutive weeks. During the 2 years that the schools were shut down, the 78 weeks covered a part of 2 school years. There were 900 children who were shot in Chicago during that period of time. Notice the other day, the Inspector General came out with a story about the doubling of travel since 2019, since COVID. The school employees doubled their travel budgets, and they went to Las Vegas and all sorts of exotic places. So while schools were shut down by 2019, and school employees and everybody and CTU members were getting historic increases in their contracts, the kids were getting shot in the street. Education was being significantly degraded. 38,000 students left the system never to return. It was catastrophic. Yet, no stories about this. No stories about the link between the school shutdown and the violence against children.
Paul, I got kind of a little a montage of sound audio from one of the many stories covering CPS wasting, just doing unbelievable trips, 4-star, 5-star hotels exceeding what they're allowed to do, not even getting permission on many of these things, sometimes filling out stuff afterwards. Let me play this for you and have your reaction. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
It's a lot. There's a lot included in this report, Marie. We're talking wildlife safaris, hot air balloon trips, even camel rides, okay? All at the district's expense, and at a time, if you remember, when CPS is trying to close a $700 million budget gap.
By our judgment, the costs were frequently excessive. And in fact, they frequently exceeded CPS's spending limits.
One of them, a $20,000 trip to Egypt that was never pre-approved. The report shows some people charge CPS for limo rides to the airport and education retreats at spas. Others would go to conferences at Disney World, but wouldn't attend a similar event in Chicago.
CPS should find a way to do more professional development here in Chicago, close to home. At that Vegas conference, they were staying at 4 or 5-star hotels, including Caesar's Palace and the Bellagio.
Almost 90% of those who attended exceeded the district's hotel room spending limit. District travel spending more than doubled between 2019 and 2024. But remember, CPS announced earlier this year it faced a more than $700 million budget hole. And this summer, the district laid off hundreds of staff and made other cuts to close the gap, with more cuts likely.
Wow, Paul.
Yeah, it's amazing. And bear in mind that during 2 of those years, since 2019 and 2024, that's when the schools were shut down. That's when the teachers union was forcing the school district to keep schools closed long after the science and the parochial schools, which had reopened the following year after COVID struck, after they had all reopened and had reopened safely. So it's just a monumental ripoff. Also, bear in mind, during the same period of time, from 2019, the school district got $2.8 billion in COVID money, all of which has been squandered. So, of course, they have this massive budget deficit, which required that they raise property taxes again. The mayor claims he didn't raise property taxes in his budget, but his school board raised property taxes again by $232 million. And now, of course, in his budget, he wants to give the schools $550 million in additional property taxes from the TIF surplus. Those are surplus property taxes that that surplus money, why isn't that money going back to taxpayers? No, he wants to give the schools $550 million in additional TIF surpluses on top of their almost 60% share of the total property taxes that people pay.
It's just filthy. It's filthy. It's disgusting. And J.B. Pritzker, of course, attacking school choice, saying supporters of school choice can F, full word, all the way off. I love what you said in one of your tweets, and I want you to expound upon this. You said if vulgarity is an appropriate rhetorical response for bad policies, it must be appropriately directed at those responsible, the governor himself. So, didn't he go to private school? Didn't his kids go to private school?
Yeah, I never comment on who sends their kids to private schools or people have the right to find the best schooling for their kids. But there is total hypocrisy here. Look, almost 40% of the teachers do not even send their kids to public schools. They send their kids to private schools. The mayor sends his kids to magnet schools. Stacey Davis Gates sends her kids to schools outside their neighborhoods, or for that matter, I think one of her children go to a private school. Mm-hmm. That's great, but if you come from a working family, if you're poor, and the overwhelming number of children who go to Chicago public schools are Black and Latino, and the overwhelming number of those children live below the poverty level, you are literally confined to a failing neighborhood school. You have no school choice. They're being denied their constitutional rights to quality education. Meanwhile, COVID, the people are wine and dining, taking these exotic trips, and they're getting pay increases despite the fact that historic pay increases despite the fact that they haven't added a minute to the instructional day. And of course, Stacey Davis Gates now is claiming that the schools are being shortchanged by $1.6 billion. They are spending this year $34,000 per student. It is highway robbery. It's not going to change with Johnson and Pritzker and the Democratic-controlled legislature there in the pocket of the teacher unions. I submit to you, it's only going to get worse.
Paul Vallas, I also saw something about the Palmetto State, South Carolina versus Illinois, and per pupil cost. Now, it said the per pupil cost, I think Illinois is $22,000, which is insane, versus South Carolina, which is around, I think, $14,000. It said. And yet South Carolina's results are better than Illinois. This is total and complete corruption and waste of our money and the kids, and they lower the test scores in the state of Illinois. It's disgusting. Can I tell you something? We homeschooled our kids. Now they're in college, but we homeschooled our kids. And my wife, you're an education expert. My wife, what she did in her research, she found like the California standardized test from like 1978, something like that, is the best test because it used to be rigorous and challenging and the way it should be. But nowadays it's like the antithesis of that, is it not?
Yeah, well, they're returning to social promotion. And, of course, Stacey Davis Gates, who plays the race card as much as Brandon Johnson does, and whose policies are actually damaging the black community, whether it's not having enough cops, to denying the black community school choice, to spending, the city has spent $600 million on illegal migrants and done paltry investments in the neighborhoods, very little new affordable housing. I mean, at the end of the day, all they're doing is damaging the poorest communities, the black communities. But Stacey Davis Gates, of course, has referred to testing and accountability as the creation of white racists. Mm-hmm. She actually said that. I think the quote was actually probably worse. I think I sanitized it. But I mean, that's the rhetoric. All we're doing is we're really literally being taken to the cleaners. And I believe that the greatest threat to the viability of the city, the greatest threat to our future, lies in the Chicago Teachers Union and the stranglehold that they have over City Hall. Yeah. Stranglehold they had over Speaker Welsh, who incidentally has begun echoing the same Johnson rhetoric. And of course the stranglehold they have over the school budget.
Let's hit two more things from your column, Chicago's killing fields in the Chicago Contrarian, Paul Vallas. Mayor Johnson, you write, there's a political urgency. Reclaim lost support among black voters by depicting immigration enforcement as modern-day slavery. Johnson has called the term illegal aliens racist, comparing it to the language used to justify slavery, which is so pathetic. Recently equated federal enforcement actions to the breakup of black families during slavery. It's to distract the fact that black residents continue to flee the city, driven away by violence, failing schools, dwindling opportunities, while newly arrived illegal migrants are welcomed to the city with city subsidies. How many black folks, whether it be population or numbers or whatever, are fleeing the city and the schools, as far as you know?
Well, over the last, since 2000, well over 250,000 black residents have left the city. They are overwhelmingly middle and upper income black families with children. In fact, today, the black population in the city is 17% lower than it was 20 years ago. But that's the population of black adults. But the population of black children is 47% lower.
Wow.
So that means black families are leaving, and
fleeing
because of crime, because of schools. They're exiting, and they're exiting. The biggest two of the three biggest recipients of Chicago residents of residents from the state is Indiana and Wisconsin, our neighbors. The state has lost 1.6 million residents since 2000. And the income differential, this is stunning, the income differential between those leaving and those coming, in other words, those leaving on average earn almost $40,000 more a year than those coming. So not only are we displacing Illinois residents and Chicago residents, middle income and upper income and affluent residents, we're replacing them with poor residents. And of course, since 2019, there's been a huge influx of immigrants. And look, I'm the grandson of Greek American immigrants. My grandparents, you can see their names at Ellis Island because they came across with Ellis Island. So at the end of the day, I'm not disparaging the need for us to be a welcoming city for migrants, but clearly the game plan has been to replace the fleeing state and city population of middle income population with really migrants to basically keep our the number of residents up, so we're not losing our congressional seats and we're not losing our congressional power. So this is all politics, and unfortunately, the state and the city are suffering because of it.
Yes. Paul, one more thing I wanted to ask you about. You commented about Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia. And it looks like, from where I sit and where the reports are, that he rigged it. You even have a Democrat from Washington State who called him out on the floor yesterday for rigging, giving his apparently, secretly or quietly letting his chief of staff take over and run for his office at the last minute. Talk to me about that real quick.
Well, look, there's no democracy within the Democratic Party, and clearly what Chuy Garcia basically did was he made everybody think he was going to run until the last minute so no one could circulate petitions, and then of course, suddenly his chief of staff circulated the signature she needed to get on the ballot, and then the next day he dropped out. So clearly they tried to rig it, but they've been doing this for years. Look, Chuy Garcia accomplished absolutely nothing in Congress. Mm-hmm. His claim to fame was constantly opposing funding for Israel or the Iron Dome. I mean, who votes against the Iron Dome? I like to affectionately say that the only thing that separated Chuy Garcia from the squad is his mustache.
I love that line. I love that line. I read that one.
He's as far left as they come. I mean, totally unaccomplished. Look, as you know, we are a very gerrymandered state here. We're probably one of the most gerrymandered states, which guarantees the Democrats control of the House and the Senate, veto-proof, and of course, guarantee what 14 of our 17 congressional seats are Democrats. But what happens because the party is so gerrymandered, and because for moderate Democrats, years ago when the margins were much closer, a lot of moderate Democrats would align with moderate Republicans to basically drive more sensible policies. But now, even within the Democratic Party alone, it has really veered far left, radically left. And at the end of the day, there's not only is Illinois a one-party state, but within that party itself, there's very little democracy.
Yes.
It's really
Paul Vallas,
a socialist party.
Paul Vallas, CEO of McKinsey Foundation, policy advisor at the Illinois Policy Institute, ran for mayor in Chicago 2023, previously served as CEO of Chicago Public Schools. Thank you for your time. Always love having you on, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Hey, coming up, I want to tell you about Grover Norquist. He's going to join us. I cannot wait to talk to him about Obamacare, so much more. All that's coming up next. It's Chris Crock. And for Dan Proft, this is AM 560, The Answer.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Our veterans are our heroes. They answered the call to defend our freedom, putting their lives on the line for our nation. But today, thousands of those brave men and women are facing something no hero should ever face: food insecurity. That's where Farm to Veteran comes in. Through the Fulcrum Farm Foundation, this remarkable organization delivers farm-fresh, nutritious food directly to veterans in need through veteran services and